What I want to do at this point is I want to give you a little bit of an indication of where your stress hormone system is. So for those of you attending here live, some of you are going to be watching just on the replay here. For those live, just take out your pad and paper, which I see you already have in your possession right now. And for those at home, if you don't have a pad of paper and a pen, just pause this for a moment and go grab that so we can actually go through a very simple assessment to help you understand if your stress hormone system is the big driving force behind your menopause symptoms. So with this assessment today, what I want you to do is answer with a 1, a 3, or a 5 to all these questions. So you don't have to worry about numbering it. You just go down your pad of paper on each next line, put down either 1 or 3 or 5 for each question. So the first question is, or statement, I experience problems falling asleep. So a 1 would mean, no, this is not a problem, or almost never. 3 is this occasionally happens. And 5, this happens often or all the time. So again, first question, I experience problems falling asleep, either a 1, a 3, or a 5. The second statement, I experience problems staying asleep. Again, a 1, a 3, or a 5. The third statement, I frequently experience a second wind or high energy later in the evening. 1 meaning that never happens to me, 3 occasionally, or 5 often or all the time. Next statement, I have energy highs and lows throughout the day. 1, 3, or 5. Or another statement, I feel tired all the time. And this is the one where I often get this as a 5 for most women. And it's really quite sad to recognize. Next group of questions. I need caffeine, maybe a coffee, tea, cola, energy drink, or something on that level to get you going in the morning. Is that a 1, a 3, or a 5? I usually go to bed after 10 p.m. Does that almost never happen, occasionally happen, or very often or always happen? I frequently get less than 8 hours of sleep per night, which is a big challenge for many people and many women with menopause. So is that a 1, a 3, or a 5 for you? I'm easily fatigued. Next statement. Things that I used to enjoy seem like a chore lately. So is that really never or not often an issue, or is that occasionally an issue, or often or always an issue? Next statement, my sex drive is lower than it used to be, which is often a challenge for women in menopause. So is that a 1, a 3, or a 5 for you? Or how about I suffer from depression, or have recently been experiencing feelings of depression such as sadness or a loss of motivation. So it doesn't have to be a clinical depressed state, but do you feel depressed, sad, unmotivated on a regular basis? Would that be a 1, a 3, or a 5? If I skip meals, I feel low energy or foggy or disoriented. Does that never happen to you, occasionally, or often, or always? 1, 3, or 5. Has your ability to handle stress decreased as you've been transitioning through menopause? Again, is that a 1, a 3, or a 5? Or you find that you're easily irritated now or upset in a way that maybe you weren't years ago? Not usually, occasionally, or often, or all the time. 1, 3, or a 5. So the last set of statements for you to grade for yourself. I have had 1 or more stressful major life event in my past, such as divorce, death of a loved one, a significant job loss, a new baby, or a new job. And again, a 1, a 3, or a 5. Do you tend to overwork with little time for play or relaxation for extended time periods? Does that never happen, occasionally, or often to always? Do you crave sweets? Is that a 1, a 3, or a 5? Do you frequently skip meals or eat sporadically? And lastly, do you feel that you're experiencing increased physical complaints such as muscle aches, headaches, or more frequent illnesses or challenges in your daily life? So is that a 1, a 3, or a 5? So what I want you to do is just take a few moments here and add up the total of the scores that you've written down in your paper so we can get a total number, and then we're going to discuss this a little bit deeper. Okay, does anybody need a few more minutes? Okay, all right, a couple more minutes. For those watching the replay, I'm going to just cut this right here, and I will then open up right away into discussing your results. Well, excellent. Well, now that everybody has their score, let's discuss what your score really truly means. So first off, with a raise of hands, how many people scored between a 0 and 30? Okay. Don't be alarmed. I mean, obviously nobody has raised their hand 0 to 30. And if you're suffering with menopause symptoms, just to really level with you, I wouldn't even expect you to be anywhere near 0 to 30. Because 0 to 30 would tell me that your adrenals and your stress hormone system are actually working very well. And you just have to continue doing what you're doing, and you probably would have no issue with menopause symptoms whatsoever. But that's not why you're here. So did you score between a 31 and a 40? Whether they be those here or for you at home. Okay, not surprising that I don't have any between a 31 and a 40. 31 to 40 is that there would just be some minor concerns with your stress hormones, and you can basically focus on your simple fundamentals of health. Do the simple things in life. Maybe take some adrenal support supplement like a vitamin B5, which is very helpful for adrenal hormone production and stress hormones and menopausal symptoms. But it wouldn't be likely that if you were at the 31 to 40 that you would probably not have menopause symptoms, or they would be very insignificant. All right, so now by show of hands, who is between 41 and 50 people showing up here? Now, if you're between 41 and 50, we already know there's challenges with your adrenal glands. And most people in the 41 to 50 range, you have time periods in your day where you don't produce enough hormones for even normal body function, which is one of the triggers and reasons why you actually have these menopause symptoms you're living with today. Now, how about a show of hands? Who's between 51 and 60? Okay, so now we're getting more, and then this is where we get into the likely stages. Generally speaking, women who are dealing with menopause symptoms are going to be somewhere above 51, and a good percentage of you are sitting there. And basically, this tells us is that there's a really deep challenge with your stress hormone system, and likely a deeper issue with what I would refer to as adrenal insufficiency that's driving your menopause symptoms today. All right, so now the last one. Who scored a 60 or higher? Who's my overachievers here? All right. Well, and ladies, don't make this a doom and gloom. Now, just to really level with you on this, it doesn't matter where you're at with your stress hormone system. It doesn't matter where you're at, basically, with your overall menopause symptoms. Regardless of where you're at, regardless of what you've been doing in the past, you can overcome this. You can do something to change how your stress hormone system is working. You can balance your adrenal glands, and you can escape those 5 most prominent symptoms of menopause. The next thing that I want to get into is really some common questions. I do this presentation often, whether it be online, social media, through my newsletter, to larger groups, smaller groups, to individuals, and I do get some common questions that I want to address today. So the first one is, what if I go the route of bioidentical hormones? Now, in all sincerity, many women that I'm working with have already gone down that path, and they found that that really hasn't been the answer for them. And honestly, it could even be more than just not the answer. So I really need to level you with this one and offer you some information that's going to be invaluable to you. Is that I've often seen women who've gone on either progesterone and or estrogen creams that don't absorb these creams very well vascularly. So the hormones never end up in the blood, but instead they just end up in the tissue of the body. So while the blood levels would still be showing that you're low in this hormone, it's building up in your tissue. And I'm sure you've already heard and understood that having a buildup of estrogen in the tissue of your body, and especially fat tissue and more specifically breast tissue, is very simply, that's a risk factor, a high risk factor for developing breast cancer. So why would we want to do something that still is not getting to the core of what's going on for you, yet it could actually create some significant challenges? Now, if you go the route of bioidentical hormones, you can still actually work on balancing your stress hormone system. Now, another question, what if I do not focus on my stress hormones? Well, if you don't, then it's likely that you're still going to have challenges with menopause symptoms. That you don't achieve that state of, almost euphoria for women when you reach the state of the only thing you are suffering with, and this isn't suffering, is that you just simply don't have those menopause symptoms. But there's more than that. If you don't address the stress hormone system, this affects so much more than just menopause symptoms. And that's going to be part of my free gift today. I'm going to help you understand the depth that this really has holistically on your body. The next question, is it possible to never have menopause symptoms? The hot flashes, the mood swings, the sleeplessness, the brain fog, the feeling out of control, the weight gain. And rather than me answering that question, I just simply posted a testimonial of a woman that shared this with me not long ago. And this is Deborah. She was talking about my program called the Personal Menopause Relief Kit, and she said, "It's a great program, Glenn, and if I was having these symptoms, I'd be signing up right away. Luckily, you helped me with my adrenal hormones, food sensitivities, and other issues already, which I'm sure is why I'm 51 and having no menopause issues at all." So that answers this question. Is it possible to never have menopause symptoms? And Deborah can tell you firsthand that she's achieved what every woman should achieve, is to simply transition from childbearing years to post-childbearing years with relative ease, just missing the monthly cycle. And the next common question, can I do this with my conventional doctor? Unfortunately, that's typically not the case, because your medical doctor is generally always going to be looking at blood results. I'm always looking at saliva results, so we can see not only the amount of hormone that you have in your blood, but also the hormones that are built up in your tissue. And we want to look at these hormones as we go all throughout the day. We don't just want one snapshot at one point of the day. So typically speaking, you're not going to be able to get an adrenal saliva kit, a stress hormone kit, from a conventional doctor. And now your free bonus gift. With your free gift, now for those of you that are here live, I'm going to actually email you a link. I've got a presentation that goes deeper into your stress hormone system and how this affects the whole of your body. For those who've attended live, I've looked at the intake form, and many of you sitting here today have deeper issues than just menopause symptoms. Many of you are dealing with hypothyroid conditions. Some have diabetes, some have cardiovascular issues. Some have different types of inflammatory disorders or autoimmune disorders. And what I can share with you today is that basically the stress hormone system is impacting every one of those challenges. And I want to share in depth with you how the system really affects your body, your health, and your happiness overall. So for those who are watching the replay of this, just click on the button below to grab your free bonus gift. And before I give a final thank you and we move on from today, I want to talk first about those truths that we know to be true, but maybe they're not. Remember, the first example I gave you was that we thought the earth was flat, but we now know the earth was round. But what about, remember I mentioned the Napoleon syndrome, short man syndrome? But what most people don't know, that Napoleon, back in his day and time, was an above average man at that time in the world's history. He didn't have short man syndrome. Or I mentioned about eating and then going in the water and getting cramps, and there's no validity physiologically of that ever happening. And the only thing that could happen if you eat before you go in the water is you just might not be able to breathe as deeply, but it's not going to lead to cramps. Or I mentioned that if you touch a toad, you can get warts, and honestly, it's impossible to catch warts from a toad. If you're going to get warts from somebody, you're going to get it from another human being, not from a toad. Or the other example, I mentioned the phrase, is blind as a bat. Bats have eyes, and they actually have very keen eyesight, but it's the combination of their eyesight along with their echolocation that make them just the most amazing animals in really flight and navigation. And I was talking about my dad and how he went from that vibrant, strong, powerful, walking with purpose man to the man who's shuffling and using a cane. The next time I came and visited him, when I went back to the suburbs of Chicago, I saw him again, and instead of that shuffle with the cane, he was walking like this again. He was walking with power. He was walking with purpose, with confidence. And there was no cane. And I asked him, Dad, what did you do? And he told me, he said, well, I just got rid of my crutch. I got rid of the cane. And I wondered why I was walking like that. And my dad told me, and this is exactly what he said. He says, I recognize that that's how old people walk, and I'm not an old person. Almost at 90, right? But all he did is he made a choice to start moving his feet in front of another and putting down the cane and having confidence again. And I shared that woman who went to see the hormone specialist of the stars, who was taking this progesterone and estrogen on a regular basis, but her levels were never going up. Yet she kept taking these hormones. And I asked the question, where did they go? And basically, when she came into my office and we tested via saliva, what we recognized is where that estrogen was going and the progesterone was going, because it wasn't getting into her blood, which is why they weren't seeing it in her blood results, but it was getting into her tissue. The saliva showed us that her estradiol level, which should have been between 1 and 3 as a postmenopausal woman, was at 35.6. That's a significant risk factor for breast cancer. And her progesterone level, which should have been between 5 and 95 as a postmenopausal woman, was over 11,000. And it's not a joke. So just to understand that some of these crutches that we may use, or things that we feel are true, are potentially not true. And then the last story, tied into myself and the seizure disorder. And remember, I initially felt out of control, but I was even having seizures on medication. And then I had that epiphany and that state of hopefulness and driving me into research, and let's find out something different. Well, as time went on, I did my research. And I'm very happy to share with you that I don't have seizures. I don't take medications for seizures. and I'm never worried about having a seizure again the rest of my life, because I got to the core of what was causing my seizure disorder. So I took control of my life back. So that was like the euphoria. That's the triumph. That's the hitting the mountaintop, whatever, however you want to say it, of finally getting control back in your life and that excitement. And as a woman right now that's suffering with menopause symptoms, you can go from that feeling of out of control to that almost wonder and awe and the intrigue and the research, and then finally find your space of triumph, of again living into the one true symptom of menopause, which is very simply the lack of your monthly cycle. So thank you all that have attended live and all that are watching the replay, for taking the time out of your busy day for me to share with you my thoughts on how to overcome the top 5 symptoms of menopause. I'm Glenn Depke from Depke Wellness, and thank you so much for your time.